right, the second part of 8.6, we're going to just continue on. We are learning to factor when the front term isn't just x squared. So here in E, I'm going to rewrite it so it's a little bit bigger. 4x squared minus 12x minus 7. We have to make sure, we always focus on the last term. That's always important. The 7 will be important. But when the first term isn't x, or just x squared, this x squared, we will still have an x and an x. What we have to decide is for the 4, will we use 1x and 4x or 2x and 2x? Now, generally, I advise that we try starting, it's called a guess and check method. You have to take a guess and do your best. I generally say, let's try by putting in the 2 and the 2, because they're the closest numbers. I mean, 2 and 2 are totally close together. 1 and 4 are more spread apart. It may not be 2 and 2. It could be the 1 and the 4. For 7, fortunately in this one, there's only 2 options, 1 times 7. Now, we still look and we read backwards. We look at the 7, then we look at the sign. This sign is a negative, so they're going to subtract to 12. That means 1 is negative, 1 is positive. If these are both 2, it really doesn't matter which one's negative and which one's positive if they're the same. If we use the 4, it could make a big difference. But I have to put the 7 and the 4 somewhere. If you remember, if this is negative and that's negative, then we would want the larger numbers to be negative. Well, I understand the 7 is a larger number. So if I put the 7 here and I multiply, that's going to be negative 14x. And we kind of see, oh, we're getting close to the negative 12. Whoops, that's supposed to be an x there. Negative 12x. If we put a 1 here and it's positive, that's plus 2x. That is it. That's our answer. Because it gets us negative 12. Now, sometimes some students mess up on the signs. For instance, they might have put the negative with the 1 and the positive with the 7. Then you would have gotten a positive 14 and a negative 2. You would have gotten positive 12x. Then you simply learn, if I got the right number, but the wrong sign, you just have to change the signs around. You just messed up on the signs. We have it right, so we actually have a negative 12x. Put it together. All right, let's try part F on the notes. See if we can get negative 13 out of that. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds here. Those watching on the video, just going to have to be patient. X and 1x is the only way that can be. Now somehow we have to try to get 13. If you can recognize right away, well, if I put the 7 here, that's going to get me 14. That'll help. Now since I want them to subtract to a negative, I'm going to make that negative. So when I multiply, I get negative 14. Does that make some sense? Now if this doesn't work, we're probably not going to have an answer. Sometimes you get ones that can't be factored. But we put a 1 here, we get plus 1x. That gets us the negative 13, so that is our answer. Again, it's important. What we're learning is you have to multiply those to figure this thing out. Okay, if it's a negative, one of them's positive, one of them's negative every time. If it's negative in the middle, the bigger value after you multiply them should be negative. Okay, let's try this one. I usually say start with the closer pair, so I'm going to start with 2x and 2x. So I'll start with the closer pair here, 3 and 5. If I put a 3 here and a 5 here, we get 10x. And I'm going to make it negative. And 6x. So that does not give us negative 7. So that cannot be right. Now here's the deal. If I switch these around and I move the 5 and the 3, it's not going to make a difference because they're both 2's. So even if I put the 5 here and the 3 here, all it would do would make a positive 10 and a negative 6, and I get positive 4x. So here's what that tells me. That part doesn't work with the 2 and 2. So how about the 15? So if I put 15 here, that's 30x. I'll make it negative, because that's going to be the biggest. 1 here, that's plus 2. That's negative 28x. That didn't work. So that tells me it can't be 2 and 2. This is the first time we've had one that hasn't worked out with the closer pair. So now again, it's called guess and check, which is why you might want to be writing with pencil. So I'm going to now try the 1 and the 4. If I put the 5 here, that's 20x. I'm going to make it negative because that's a big number. Probably going to be the bigger one. And then a 3 here. Well, still not quite right. That's negative 17x. So let's switch around. Negative 5 and the 3. Now they may not be negative, so I'm just going to multiply these two, I'm going to get 12x. Multiply these two, I'm going to get 5. If I subtract those, that's 7. But I have to decide which one's negative. I have to make the 3 the negative. Now, a lot of times you say, wait, that's not what you said. Yeah, it is. 3 is the smaller number, but when you multiply 3 by 4, it becomes 12. That's the bigger number. The bigger number is still going to match the middle. Does that make sense? So now the bigger number matches the middle as negative 7. And then this is positive 5. That gets us negative 7x. So that one took a little longer to solve. But that It's the idea. So let's take out that worksheet 8.6 again. We did 1 through 8 yesterday. On worksheet 8.6, so yesterday we did 1 through 8 in the lesson. Now we're going to do a few more. We're going to do today, the goal after this lesson is to be through 14. Let's look at number 9 together. 8b squared. So on worksheet 8.6, 8b squared minus 42b plus 27. With the 8. We figure out all the ways to multiply to get 8. That's our first number. We have 1 times 8 and 2 times 4. So again, when we start to factor, it really is just a guess. I'm going to put 4x or 4b. This is b this time. 4b and 2b. It might be the 8b. We don't know. That's why we call it guess and check. You have to work through and try it. But the 27, we have to come up with the ways to get 27. 1 and 27, 2 doesn't work, 3 and 9, and that's it. Now this time they have to add to be 42, negative 42. Well, they both have to be negative. That's nice. Because if the last number is positive, they both have to be the same. And if the middle number is negative, they're both negative. If the middle number is positive, they're both positive. It's things that we look for. If the last number is negative, that's where it's a little tricky, because one's negative, one's positive. You always have to figure out which part is bigger. But now we have to try to put these in. So with the 2 and the 4, we're going to start with the 2 and the 4, like we said. Let's try the 3 and the 9, because that's the closer pair. So let's put the 3 here, the 9 here, and see what happens. We get negative 12b, negative 18b, that's negative 30. Okay, doesn't quite work. We need negative 42. So again, that's the process you have to check. Sometimes you're going to get better at this. You're going to get faster. You're going to see it quicker. Let's try the other one now. We need to switch them. We'll put the 9 here and the 3 here. 4 times 9 is 36. That's negative 36b. 3 times 2 is negative 6b. Aha! That's negative 42. Okay, so for today, we're doing the 9 through 14.